YouTubers, welcome back. It's Tyler here, and again for you today, I have part 3 of the Nitrous install on my Turdbox S10. I did a whole video of installing wires and all this, and I just looked at it. I thought to myself, as I was playing it back in the timeline, this is boring as crap. No one's gonna want to watch it. Blasey, blasey, blah. Hey, if y'all want to listen to this full talk, y'all can skip to this time right here and get to some full pull action. Or just stay right here and don't skip to this time and listen to this full talk. So I'm just going to briefly go over my setup on the wiring of the Nitrous. But what's more interesting is going to be the second part of this video. I'm going to go over tuning this hood scoop right here. It actually took a lot more tuning and a lot more time than I would have ever thought in my mind. I thought it'll just change the, I have to jet it up just a little bit or do a couple of changes here. No, it took a lot of playing around with different setups, different jets, different power valves, different squirters. I mean, it was actually pretty challenging. But I have a whole video on the second part, what that's going to be. So you get to see me make changes to the jets. I'll have a pull, and I'll have the jets that I changed, and you guys can look at the wideband and the RPMs, how they're climbing, and you can see how when I get it closer to the happy zone, it starts to be a little more smooth. But there's a couple of things in there that are not quite where I want it yet. It's going to take a little more tuning along the way, but I got it pretty close to where it's safe right now. So with that said, I'm going to go over the wiring real quick, and then we'll get to some pulls in the S10. All in A today, guys. Sorry, no nitrous. All right, so here is the finished install, including the hood scoop right here. I'm first want to go over why I'm learning to love LT1s, because I've always loved LT1s. It was the first motors I've ever started to mod. But when you put a small block Chevy intake on your LT1, you have a water tower that there's no water going through, because no water on the LT1 goes to the intake. It goes to the heads and to the block, but the intake is a dry intake on the LT1. So this isn't being used. And at first I was like, man, it's an eyesore. What am I going to do with this big nothing, water tower? And you see exactly its uses. You can mount your nitrous solenoid there. You can put a grounding block right there. All types of cool stuff that you can mount to it and get things out the way. Another thing that's kind of awesome too is right here with the steam tube that comes off the back of your heads, I was able to I got this loom because it kind of makes things look a lot more clean. You don't have red and black wires just sitting there exposed. And back in the day I said wire loom was stupid. When you get older you want things to look clean, so I got this little wire loom and I have everything kind of wrapped up nice on the steam, using the steam vent as a place to mount the wires to keep them from just falling down on the intake. And they go back to right here to where I have my other junction box right here. This comes off the battery, and I have 2 wires right here. I have 2 10 gauges. One 10 gauge goes to my ignition system, and the other 10 gauge goes to my nitrous kit. The nitrous kit, what I mean is purge, bottle heater, and nitrous solenoids. So they have their own junction block or own junction terminal, whatever you want to call it, that powers just those devices inside the cab. So in a nutshell, that is pretty much my nitrous setup as far as wiring goes. Inside, just switches that powers all your stuff. Nothing new, people doing this forever. So with that out the way, like I said if you watched my first video, if you follow me, I said I was going to submit that first video to Nitrous Express. I wanted them to give me some type of feedback, on, basically there's a couple of questions I had. Since this intake has a very high plenum, it's a kind of a straight tube down, and then it kind of curves out to where the runners go. It's not a gradual runner. And one of the questions that I asked them, some people wanted to know, is how does that affect atomization of the nitrous and fuel? And what they said was the longer tower gives the fuel and it gives the nitrous more room to atomize before it enters the combustion chamber. So they said basically it will give you better atomization of the fuel and nitrous and better cylinder-cylinder distribution, which is awesome. You definitely want that. They did point out this over here. They said you don't want your filter so close to your solenoid because it'll cause turbulence in a way. Like, you know, it'll basically cause the gas to expand, then it has to get smaller again, go into the noid, down to your plate. So they said it won't hurt anything, but you have to watch your tune-up and make sure that it's not too fat. And that's fine. You know, I have plenty of jets to accommodate that. So, and I'm used to tuning stuff like this. I always will give something to hit. I'll watch the wideband, make sure it's happy, and then when I get it in a decent zone where I think I'm not going to hurt anything, I'll do a full pull, shut it down, and then I'll pull all the plugs, and then I'll eyeball the plugs to see if they're telling me a different story. And you really, if you're running nitrous, you really have to pull all the plugs after a good hit and look at them, because you don't know if you're going to have one plug in one area leaner than the others, and you always tune to the leanest plug whenever you're doing a power adder. So with that said, let's get to the carburetor stuff next. And you'll watch the video. This guy would want to turn this way, so I got to figure out a way. I mean, you wouldn't think it would turn, but when you're going, like, you know, pretty darn fast, there's a lot of force on that, and this guy would always turn kind of like this way, would clock this way, and the result was, you can see back there, it started to rub right there in the hood. So I have to figure out a method to keep this guy from turning like this. But with that said, let's get on to the fun stuff. Full pulls and tuning the hood scoop in A, of course. Well, it's been several days later, and I've come to the conclusion the way I installed the hood scoop on my S10 was the wrong way, and it actually hurt performance. It's causing turbulence. I'm getting less flow into the carburetor, which I know that might sound hard to believe because you're forcing air, ramming it in there. But the way I have mine set up with no radius and the scoop being off-center to center in the hood is actually hurting performance, causing turbulence. I'm getting less airflow into the carburetor, and I'm pretty sure that's happening because there's no reason why I should need 94 jets in the rear and 84 jets in the front. And I had to change a couple of other things that I'm pretty sure, and the way those things work, like, you know, the power valve and all that, I'm getting less vacuum going into the motor. And when you have less airflow and less vacuum going through the Venturis and the carb, the only way to fix that is to jet up on the jets a whole bunch. And this was a massive change. And this change was so massive that I'm pretty sure it's all due to turbulence. But I have a piece of paper inside that I have a couple of sketches on there, and I'll go over my theories why I don't think the hood scoop on mine worked because I installed it wrong. All right, so here's my sketch. I'll try to go over this pretty quickly. This is the way I have my carb set up. First of all, it's off-centered, which you're gonna have a lot of turbulence on the edge right here where it's trying to pull air in. And not only that, but when I made the spacer to put this scoop in the position that I wanted on the hood, I didn't put a radius right here. And what I mean by radius, this is the radius. You want this to be smooth. And what's going on is when the air comes in, it has to make a hard turn to go into the carburetor. and this causes a whole bunch of turbulence right here on the edges. And I've seen this firsthand on the flow bench. When you have, they put that clay in front of the mouth of your intake runner to measure the flow, and when you take that clay off where there's no radius, it hurts the flow by 20 CFM. So I'm pretty sure that and that is the main reason why I'm hurting performance with the scoop on my vehicle, because I have, number one, it's off-centered and I have no radius. Now if you look at the hoods like this, this represents the Lexan hoods on some of those grudge cars. But if you notice, their carburetor butts right up to the mouth of this, and they're also HP carburetors which have radiuses that go into the venturi area. So the air comes in, it's not fighting against a long pathway to go into the carburetor, and that's why these scoops work. So hood scoop science is definitely a real thing. If you do it wrong, you're actually gonna hurt performance. So that's it, guys. That's my conclusion on my hood scoop, and you've made it to the very end of the video. Thanks for making it this far. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.